Close your eyes for just a moment. It's New Year's Eve, 1952. Snow is falling across the Appalachian Mountains. The radio is playing country music, real country music, the kind that told the truth about heartache and hard living. And somewhere on a dark highway between Knoxville and Canton, Ohio, a man is dying in the back seat of a car. He's just 29 years old. His name is Hank Williams, and by morning, the world would lose the greatest voice country music had ever known. If you lived through those years, you remember where you were when you heard the news. The shock, the disbelief. How could someone so young, so talented, be gone? Today, I'm going to tell you the complete story, not just how Hank Williams died, but why. The fake doctor with a criminal past, the hidden daughter no one knew about, the covered-up assault, and the desperate 20-hour drive through the snow that ended in tragedy. Even if you think you know what killed Hank Williams, I promise you, there are parts you've never heard. September 17, 1923, Mount Olive, Alabama. A boy is born with a condition that would shape every single day of his life, spina bifida occulta. Picture a crack in the foundation of a house. For this child, it meant pain, constant, grinding, never-ending pain. And this is 1928, 1929, an era when doctors didn't have much to offer except maybe aspirin and sympathy. His name was Hiram, but the world would come to know him as Hank. His mother, Lily, worked multiple jobs, kept the family together when Hank's father was hospitalized for 8 years with a brain aneurysm. When her boy was 6, someone gave him a harmonica. By 8, she scraped together $3.50 for a second-hand guitar. From the very first time Hank picked up that guitar, music wasn't just his passion, it was his escape. When that back pain flared up, when his spine felt like it was on fire, he had his music. And as he got older, he found something else that helped: alcohol. By his teenage years, Hank was already drinking to numb the pain. He'd perform at dance halls across southern Alabama, and people were mesmerized. That voice, you couldn't teach it, couldn't fake it. It came from somewhere that understood suffering. In 1943, everything changed. Hank met a woman named Audrey Shepard. They fell hard and fast, married at a gas station in 1944. Audrey believed in Hank. She pushed him, managed him, got him back on the radio after he'd been fired for showing up drunk. And then, magic happened. 1947, his song Move It On Over became a hit. By 1949, Lovesick Blues stayed at #1 on the Billboard charts for 16 weeks. Do you remember hearing that song for the first time? That yodel, that raw emotion. June 11th, 1949, Hank Williams performed at the Grand Ole Opry for the first time. They gave him 6 encores. 6! The audience wouldn't let him leave the stage. At that moment, Hank Williams wasn't just a singer, he was a phenomenon. He was making $1,000 per show. That's over $13,000 in today's money. For a boy who grew up dirt poor in Alabama, whose back never stopped hurting, he'd made it. But success has a dark side. By 1951, the pain was worse, so much worse. That November, Hank went on a hunting trip with his bandmate. He tried to jump across a gully. He fell, and when he hit the ground, something in his already damaged spine gave way. The doctors performed a spinal fusion surgery. Imagine having your vertebrae fused together. The recovery should have taken months in a hospital under careful supervision. They sent him home early with a back brace and a prescription for pain medication. To a man who was already struggling with alcohol dependency, to a man who proven time and again that he couldn't control his substance use, it was like handing matches to someone standing in a pool of gasoline. Spring 1952. Audrey divorced him after 10 years. The drinking, the pills, the missed shows. And Hank said something that still haunts me. "Audrey, I won't live another year without you." He was right. But here's what was covered up for decades. While his marriage was falling apart, Hank had an affair with a dancer named Bobby Jett. She was pregnant. The baby, born after Hank died, didn't discover she was his daughter until 1985. 30 years later, Hank's hidden daughter, the secret they buried for a generation. But the darkest part? A man who would kill him. In 1952, as the Grand Ole Opry fired Hank for missing shows, he met a man who called himself Dr. C.W. Lemon, said he could help with the pain, said he understood what Hank was going through. His real name was Horace Toby Marshall, and he wasn't a doctor at all. Marshall had bought his medical credentials, forged documents. He'd served time in Oklahoma State Penitentiary for forgery, and now, masquerading as a physician, he was prescribing one of America's most famous entertainers a cocktail of drugs that would make a pharmacist's blood run cold. Morphine, amphetamines, chloral hydrate, a powerful sedative, and more. Think about that. A fake doctor, a convicted forger, had the power to prescribe anything he wanted to a desperate man in constant pain. No oversight, no second opinion, just pills and needles and promises of relief. If you've ever experienced chronic pain, and many of you watching this have, you understand the desperation. You do anything, trust anyone, take anything for just an hour of peace. Hank was no different. He was human, he was suffering, and he was being poisoned by someone he trusted. December 1952. Hank was booked to perform in Canton, Ohio and Charleston, West Virginia for New Year's, but a massive snowstorm grounded all flights. Hank needed a driver. He found one. Charles Carr, a college student who needed money. $400, $5,000 in today's money. For Charles Carr, it would become a nightmare. They set off from Montgomery, Alabama. Along the way, they stopped in Knoxville, Tennessee. By this point, Hank was in terrible shape. Carr was scared. He begged the hotel to send a doctor. The doctor who came gave Hank an injection of morphine and vitamin B12. Morphine on top of the chloral hydrate Marshall had already prescribed, on top of whatever else Hank had in his system, on top of the alcohol he may have consumed. It was nearly midnight when they left that Knoxville hotel. Hank climbed into the back seat, pulled a blanket over himself. Charles Carr, exhausted after 20 hours behind the wheel, kept driving through the snow and darkness. They crossed into Virginia as the calendar turned to New Year's Day. Somewhere on that highway, something happened. Later, the autopsy would show evidence of a physical struggle. Injuries in Hank's groin area, bruises suggesting violence. An attack at a rest stop? Robbery? A fight? No one knows for certain. The details were never fully investigated, never fully explained. To this day, it remains one of the mysteries surrounding that terrible night. Around 5:30 in the morning, Carr stopped at an all-night restaurant. He asked Hank if he wanted to come inside, get some food. Hank declined. When Carr came back out, he thought Hank was sleeping. At a gas station in Oak Hill, West Virginia, Carr stopped to fuel up. Something made him check on Hank. He pulled back that blanket. Hank Williams wasn't sleeping. His body was cold. Rigor mortis had already set in. Hank had been dead for hours, and Carr had been driving through the night with his body in the back seat, not knowing. The police came. An autopsy was performed by Dr. Ivan Malinin. The official cause of death, heart failure and hemorrhaging in the neck. But those other troubling signs, the evidence of struggle, the suspicious injuries, they were noted but never fully explained. On January 2nd, 1953, the news broke. Hank Williams was dead at 29. His body was transported back to Montgomery, Alabama, where his mother displayed him in an open casket for 2 days so fans could say goodbye. Between 15 and 25,000 people stood outside the auditorium where his funeral was held on January 4th. In 1953, before social media, before instant news, 25,000 people traveled to Alabama to mourn a country singer. Roy Acuff sang, Red Foley sang. The Drifting Cowboys, Hank's band, played his songs as people filed past the casket, weeping. So what really killed Hank Williams? The simple answer? A combination of morphine, chloral hydrate, and alcohol that caused his already weakened heart to give out. But the real answer? The complete answer? Hank Williams was killed by a lifetime of chronic pain that no one could fix, by an era when pain management meant prescribing dangerous drugs without proper oversight, by a fake doctor with a criminal past who was never held accountable, by an entertainment industry that celebrated his music but couldn't save him from himself. That daughter I mentioned, Kathy Yvonne, didn't know who her father was until she was 32 years old. She had to fight in court for 5 years just to be acknowledged as Hank Williams' child. The cover-up was that complete. Charles Marshall, the fake doctor who prescribed that lethal cocktail, he never faced justice for what he did to Hank Williams. The man who killed country music's king walked away. Charles Carr carried the guilt forever. What if he'd checked on Hank earlier? What if he'd refused to drive? What if? Here's what changed how I see this entire story. In researching Hank's life, what emerges is not the story of a reckless addict, but of a man in agony who is trying to survive. Spina bifida occulta, the condition he was born with, is excruciating. Imagine every movement sending pain through your body. Now add a botched spinal fusion, add the stress of touring, performing, traveling, add the pressure of being the biggest name in country music while your marriage is collapsing and your career is on the line. Hank Williams wasn't weak. He was in pain. There is a difference. And in 1952, we didn't understand chronic pain the way we do now. We didn't have the treatments, the therapy, the support systems. We had alcohol. We had morphine. We had quack doctors selling false hope. If he'd been born 50 years later, modern pain management, addiction treatment, proper medical care, he might still be alive. How many other voices did we lose because pain silenced them too soon? But they couldn't kill the music. I'm so lonesome I could cry, Your Cheatin' Heart, Hey Good Lookin'. These aren't just songs, they're pieces of a human soul, proof that Hank Williams was here, that he mattered. His voice told the truth about loneliness, about heartbreak, about the kind of pain that doesn't show on the outside but consumes you from within. That's why his music endures, because it was real. If you're watching this, you probably remember the first time you heard Hank Williams sing. Maybe it was your parents' record player. Maybe it was the radio in your father's truck. Maybe it was at a dance hall on a Saturday night when you were young and the world seemed full of possibility. In the comments, I want to hear from you. What's your first memory of hearing Hank Williams? Do you remember where you were when you learned he died? If you were alive in January 1953, share that story. And if you've ever experienced chronic pain or watched someone you love suffer through it, share that too. Because Hank's story isn't just about one man, it's about all of us. How we handle suffering, how we treat people in pain, how we remember those who gave us their art even when it cost them everything. Hank Williams lived 29 years. He changed country music forever, and he suffered more than most of us can imagine. His story deserves to be told completely, honestly, with compassion, not as a cautionary tale, but as a human one. Some voices are so true they never really die. They just keep singing in the memories of those who heard them. If you were there, if you remember, your story matters too. This is history. Your history. Our history. Thank you for watching.